Whether your first glimpse of We Happy Few was at E3 this year or in February of last year when its trailer first debuted, chances are it was head-turning but not particularly revealing as to how the game played. We saw clown-faced people messed up on some drug called joy and got the distinct feeling that things were far from right in this alternate retrofuturistic version of 1960s England. Obviously it's early days as the game has just arrived on Steam Early Access, and in my experience so far the game is kind of riddled with bugs. That said, I am finding the game world intriguing enough to push through. At the start of the game you can opt not to take your joy, but then you'll find yourself facing off against the drug-addled inhabitants of Wellington Wells and branded as a downer. This is where the game really begins. You'll start off in the Garden District, where all of the downers, or wastrels, have been segregated into a dilapidated part of town, away from the rainbow roads and skipping civilians in the village of Hamlin. To call the wastrels downers may actually be an understatement. You're regularly accosted by people telling you to fuck off and similar delightful salutations, while your protagonist Arthur Hastings occasionally muses to himself about his depressing predicament. Interestingly, the game is described as a survival roguelike, and it features a procedurally generated town. Before I got my hands on the early access build, this seemed like a massive shame to me, as survival roguelikes usually result in you dying constantly. Since We Happy Few is full of quests to complete and things to do, I was not into the idea of frequently losing my progress. When I actually got into the game though, the roguelike permadeath mechanic mostly just led me to be more cautious. I never lost progress as a result of it. A big cushion for the game's permadeath mechanic is the second wind feature, which lets you get back up after your health is completely depleted, after which you have a short window of time to heal from your injuries, or run away and find something to heal you up. It's worth noting that as of the latest build, both permadeath and second wind are optional mechanics, and are both on by default. While you will want to be careful, this isn't the sort of roguelike where you can expect to be killed off every 20 minutes because of little mistakes. That said, I'm an overly cautious player in survival games. My friend died to starvation, food poisoning, and the plague during his time with the game, so you may need to watch out a little more depending on your playstyle. You will need to constantly tend to your vitals if you want to survive. Arthur needs food, water, and sleep, and if he gets hurt, you'll need to heal him up. If Arthur is hungry, thirsty, tired, or wounded, these will have lasting negative status effects that can affect your stamina and rate of fatigue, among other things. You can also temporarily dose him with the joy drug to blend in with the joy junkies in the village of Hamlin, so you don't arouse suspicion. Fortunately, these aspects rarely felt aggravating, and instead encouraged me to always have my mind on scavenging, exploring new areas, and crafting new supplies wherever possible. Crafting is another central mechanic in We Happy Few. You can make everything from healing salves to new clothes that will affect your conformity stat, which affects your ability to go unnoticed, as well as tools like lockpicks, weapons, and devices that will disarm traps. You'll find blueprints to learn to craft these things strewn about the game world, and the supplies you'll need to make them with. Of course, Arthur doesn't really own anything, so mostly you'll be stealing. Like a lot of stealing. Like when you would hit up the weapons trader in Oblivion after closing time and bag 20 shitty iron daggers. The amount of glass bottles and empty pill bottles you'll amass will be staggering. Unlike Oblivion, however, We Happy Few has no indicator of when you're hidden. It only tells you when you're already doing something bad, like holding a weapon or breaking into a coin box. So you'll actually need to have a good look around and make sure any NPCs are at the very least facing away from you before you pill for their shit, lest you find yourself sprinting away from their house with some new bruises. Your inventory is limited, although you can expand it slightly with collectible expansion devices. There's only so much you can carry at one time. Your safe house does include a personal safe that functions as a stash point, so like so many other aspects of this game, you'll just need to think ahead and know your priorities. This same rule applies to combat, where I found the best way of attacking was using my stamina sparingly, falling back frequently, and landing charged heavy attacks, preferably while wielding something hefty. Stealth, takedowns, and running and hiding are also valid alternatives. And if you only have one opponent, you can probably go to town with well-timed punches and not die. In any case, patience is key, as is not getting surrounded. Eventually, you'll need to make your way to the main city to complete your main quest of escaping Wellington Wells. This is where things get quite a bit more difficult. You'll probably find yourself running from hordes of civilians and policemen screaming that you're a downer at one point or another. This is where you'll make use of your trap disarming devices, as many of the Hamlin houses you want to raid are riddled with traps. You'll also need Jimmy bars to break into houses from the outside, and if all else fails, you can pop a couple of joy to get the crowd of shiny happy people off your downer back. If you don't have any pills on you, hightail it back to Downer Town. That works too.
We Happy Few asks you to be careful, clever, crafty, stealthy, occasionally aggressive, and just generally good at improvising when things go wrong, which, trust me, they absolutely will.
The easiest way to figure out if you'll enjoy this one is if you are keen on games like Don't Starve and Sir You Are Being Hunted. It will be interesting to see how replayable the game proves to be when you do complete the main escape quest, but the fact that there are multiple playable characters on the way should hopefully help in that department. For now, the tense moments are challenging, completing quests and crafting new items is satisfying, and while I personally found the game to be pretty buggy in its current state, even being off your joy feels pretty bloody good.
That feels better, doesn't it? See? You never have